you to the Central America and Dominican Republic export training. We're going to have two speakers today. The first will be Dr. Juan Rodriguez. He's the director for the International Liaison Office of the FSIS Office of International Coordination. And then we'll have Alejandra Valdez out of our Mexico City office. She is the Director of Technical Services for Mexico, Central America, and Dominican Republic. For those that have been on before, we will take questions at the end, but feel free as we work through the speakers to put those into the Q&A or chat box, and then we will moderate those at the end. So we're going to test out with Dr. Rodriguez. He'll be our first speaker. And I can put the slides up. Let's see if we can hear you, Dr. Rodriguez. And then Olivia, if you can stop recording for Dr. Rodriguez's portion, please.
Good morning, everyone. Right now, we're going to have a brief overview of the common problems for Central America and also a little bit of their export process. It's not an in-depth because in-depth would take us many days, but it's just a brief overview. The most common problems for Central America, fortunately, in a way, are not related to our products, but are related mostly for dirt. Dirty containers, the presence of insects, and one that we can't control, as you can see in the photo below, not really good installations for inspection. Next, please. What are other problems? Confusing labelings, wooden pallets without the treatment seal, and product names that can confuse the officials. We as SMEF have been working on that, developing nomenclature manuals for our members and also for the importers, so they don't have problem with the last one. Next, please. We'll start first with Panama. Panama, in a way, is a little bit hard right now because one of the government agencies is in the process of being changed into two agencies. But since they are still in that part, I'm going to speak of how it is usually done. If there's anything new, we will just update you sooner. As we can see, all establishments can export to Panama. And some of the information that must be in the labels is the country of origin, the establishment number, the name of the product, and the label can be in English. Next, please. Panama mainly receives their exports into ports, the port of Manzanillo, the port of Cristobal, and the port of Evergreen in the Atlantic, and the port of Balboa in the Pacific. Basically, the importer has to submit a copy of import notification that goes to the AUPSA side. AUPSA is an equivalent of FSIS, and that is the government agency that is in the process of being changed into two agencies. You have also to submit a packing list of products, the certificate of origin, the copy of the commercial invoice, and the pre-customs declaration. Sometimes AUPSA does some laboratory tests on imported food products, but it's mostly on processed meats, looking for contaminants like E. coli, salmonella, etc. Next, please. "48 hours before the ship arrives, the importer must fill the specification of what the cargo is arriving. That is verified by the CINISA, that's a computer system, and it allows inspectors to see if the load will have when it will arrive and what kind of tests have to be done to it. It also allows the general public to learn more about the sanitary requirements. The boxes of meat that is mostly frozen are not open at the seaports, AUPSA offices, because they don't have cold storages. So mostly the inspections is done in the importer's cold storage facilities or at the plant of destination. Next, please. This is a mock document of how the import notification looks like. As I tell you, it will maybe change in the future, but as you can see, the data that you have to have is the importer data, the name, the phone, the address, email, the tariff code of the product, the description of the tariff code, the quantity, the species, type of product, if it's an animal, if it's vegetable, if it's frozen, if it's for human consumption, animal consumption, what's the country of origin, and who is exporter. Next, please. According to the Article 54 of a law decree of the 11th of February, all processed food products must be registered before the AUPSA prior to importation. Fortunately for us, raw materials such as fresh meats, which are not packed and ready for retail, are exempt from that. AUPSA also might corroborate the above information, and so if it's necessary to send legibly scanned copies of the labels. The originals of such documents can be presented to the AUPSA for a period of 34 working days. And the food product registration shall remain unchanged as long as nothing changes in the product itself. As we know, this might change, but we'll keep you updated if anything happens. Next, please. Guatemala is a little bit more of the same. The agencies that have to deal with meat are the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Food, the MAGA, the OIRSA, or Interregional Organization for Plant and Animal Health, and the Vice Ministry of Plant and Animal Health and Regulations. Local laws allow the companies and individuals to import directly with no intervention for agents, but it is preferably if you work with a broker that has experience in importing the products. The importer must request a sanitary license from BISAR to operate or process or holding facility for meat products. And this is requested for every food product of the importer, but the license can be obtained in the website. Next, please. The main entry ports, as you can see, are in the Atlantic, is Santo Tomás de Castilla, Puerto Barrios, and in the Pacific, Puerto Quetzal. But as you can see in the photos, these ports are a little bit limited in the capacity of the quantity of cargo that they can receive. So be patient when you send products over to Guatemala. Next, please. For most products, the FSIS 9060-5 will be all that is needed, along with the commercial invoice, the bill of lading, and the CAFTA certificate of origin. We have to remember also that the CAFTA doesn't have a pre-required format. You only have to submit the information requested by CAFTA. The registration, if the product is processed, must be done in the Division of Registration and Control of Medicine and Food of the Ministry of Health, but you can download there the format. Once registration is completed and the payment is made, it has to be done in the Ventanilla de Servicios de Alimentos y Medicamentos, and food control issues a sanitary registration number after a laboratory test has been performed on animal products. This registration is valid for 5 years and mostly takes 6 weeks to be issued. Right now, also remember that due to COVID, all the things can take more time. Next, please. At least a week prior to exporting, the importer must request that import license from BISAR in the website. If you need the website, just contact Cheyenne and myself. Next, please. And to receive that license, all these documents in originals are going to be required, such as the certificate of origin, the sanitary certificate for FSIS, the commercial invoice, and the bill of lading. So nothing that you're not familiar with. Next, please. The copies of these documents will be sent to your Guatemalan representative, and the representative must have the following in order to be your liaison over there: the copy of the sanitary license, a copy of the certificate of sanitary registration for the exporting company, a copy of eligibility certificate of the country to export to Guatemala, and the export license is going to be valid for 30 days. So if the product hasn't arrived by that time, please revalidate this documentation. Next, please. Once the load arrives, it has to pass through the single window or ventanilla única of the MAGA. They will check the FSIS certificate, the commercial invoice, the bill of lading, the certificate of resale for processed products, the packing list and certificate of origin in case of a re-export, and the CAFTA certificate. As you can see, as long as it was in Panama, well, there are not that much cold storage facilities, so please be aware of that. Next, please. After the import certificate has been issued, the documents have been provided, and then you have to pay the tax. And after all that is done, the shipment can be released from the port. But remember, the ports are small, so this might take a little bit of time. Next, please. Guatemala right now has exempted beef and pork from presenting MRLs, but we never know in the future, so always be careful. Next, please. Guatemala is again mostly more of the same. The entities that control the imports are the Secretariat of Agriculture and Livestock, or SAG, the National Secretariat of Plant and Animal Health Service, called SENASA, who is the one who makes the inspections. And the main port of entry is in Puerto Cortés in the Atlantic. Mostly the ones that make the inspections are the OIRSA personnel, because SAG doesn't have enough personnel. Next, please. Again, the ports are tiny, and well, in the export process, the same documentation, the 9060-5, the bill of lading. In the case of Honduras, the single declaration before customs, or DUA, the invoice, the certificate of origin, and a copy of the import copy of the commercial invoice of the product and customs pre-declaration. All establishments are approved for Honduras. We just have to remember now that especially for pork, Honduras is a little bit sensitive. So in case something that sometimes has caused laws to be detained is that they see the prices and they check the prices over in the AMS website. And some Honduras inspectors thought that the US prices in the invoice were too low. So also we as USMEF have made some seminars debating this point, because the people in Honduras thought that the prices in the AMS website were the only prices that they should be. So we had to explain them that no, prices change depending on the company and on where the load is going. But I just wanted to point that out because it's sometimes that occasionally flares when you send product, especially pork, to Honduras. Next, please. In addition to the US labeling requirements, you have to have the lot number, production date. Please pay attention, it has to be on the day, month, and year format. Also, the expiration date has to be in that format. That is a mock image of a DUA. Next, please. The importer must be registered before SENASA, who will monitor the import establishment and its compliance with food safety, cooling, hygiene conditions, etc. To obtain that registration, the importer should submit a legal request to SENASA. Next, please. Once you have the bill of lading, the invoice, and all the documentation, the importer will fill the request of import permit, and you will need to have the following information for that: the product name, the weight, the country of origin, country of procedence, free of board price, importer name, importer's company, IRS registry for the Honduran one, the name of the purveyor, transportation method, point of entry, and well, the SENASA is going to check all that information. Next, please. The process for this checking will take 24 to 72 hours, and this permit will be valid for 30 days. As always, due to COVID, it might take a little bit more time, so please be prepared. Once this request of import permit is done, the policy will be filled and it will be uploaded to the customs system and it will be paid in the bank. The importer will see the customs accountant. He will inspect the load along with the SENASA inspector. The SENASA inspector will receive also the documents, and they will verify the conditions of the load, the degree, if it's frozen, if it's fresh. Most important here, and it happened in the past, they will check for insects. So please be very sure that your containers are cleaned. We had in the past a load that was detained, I think it was like 2-3 weeks because of that insect, because they had to send it over to an entomology lab in the capital Tegucigalpa. So please be careful. And once the load has been inspected and cleared, this policy will be signed and the customs accountant will give the important and exit pass, and the SENASA will give the receipt of inspections. And with that, the dispatch from the maritime company can be done. Next, please. VR, and then hopefully we will be able to check with our esteemed colleague Juan Rodriguez. There is a pre-import process. The importer must ask for an import license. They have to submit a letter to the Ministry of Agriculture through the Department of Agriculture and Livestock Promotion of the Ministry of Agriculture. You need to have a sanitary and sanitary non-objection certificate, an invoice or pro forma invoice, and appoint the customs agents. Next, please. The General Directory of Customs will also request the following: the bill of lading, the commercial invoice, the insurance certificate issued by a local insurance company, export certificate issued by a country of origin. For products of animal origin, a sanitary no objection certificate issued by the Ministry of Agriculture. And when you have done all these, the DGA clearance procedure might be completed in 24 hours due to their computer system. Next, please. Pre-arrival, you have to send the bill of lading or airway bill and the import declaration. Once the load has arrived, at the inspection point, you have to pay the import duties and taxes and submit the original import license, sanitary or sanitary no objection certificate, and the invoices, so the inspection can be done. Next, please. Once in the inspection process, the inspection request to the quarantine office, they will check if there are pests, if there are insects, check the condition of the loads, and if everything is fine, there will be no quarantine and the product will be released. Next, please. I think that's all of mine. Yep, all of mine are done. Now we just need Dr. Rodriguez.
Thanks, Alex. I'm going to hop back. So since Dr. Rodriguez is having audio issues, I will quickly present his slides, but he will remain on to answer questions. So the good thing is that when we talk about market access in Central America, everything for the most part is wide open, no plan approvals, etc. So we're doing this a little bit backwards as Alex went in depth through what the import process looks like, which can vary greatly, as you saw, between the Central American countries. And then we're going to hop back to lay the foundation of what the export requirements look like as posted in the export library. So I won't do as good of a job as Dr. Rodriguez, but I'll try and run through these and give you a rough idea. So bottom line is we have no plant approval process for any Central American countries or the DR. So all federally inspected establishments are eligible to export to these countries. Now, as Alex mentioned, we do have a registration process for processed products, but if you're shipping any other items, there is no plant approval process through the 9080-3. Okay, looking at Panama, all products eligible, beef, pork, lamb, etc. Certificates must be signed by a veterinarian, and only a 9060-5 is required with no additional letterheads. But there is this note for the exporter as listed in the export library that does designate for beef cuts. Exporters must include the USDA grade designation in the description of the product. This is especially important to qualify for our preferential duties under the free trade agreement. And as Alex mentioned, there can be confusion sometimes with customs agents when trying to apply for those preferential duties, and that helps mitigate. Okay, Guatemala, all products are eligible, beef, pork, lamb. You can see some additional requirements for beef there. There are some FTA requirements. Those are listed in the export library. The certificate must also be signed by the veterinarian, and there are letterhead certificates for beef products, but with no onerous attestations there. Honduras, again, all products eligible. There are some additional labeling requirements. You can see here the following information must appear in Spanish, and then the dates must be in the day, month, year format. And then there are expiration date requirements along with that, which we consider an extra label feature for our export markets. There are no letterhead certificates, only a 9060-5 required in this case. Belize, not a huge market for us, but one that we are growing bit by bit. So beef, sheep, and pork is eligible, even though it's not specifically stated, or we do not know of any pork restrictions there. Letterhead certificates are required for beef and sheep and goat meat products. Costa Rica, beef, pork are eligible. Labels must be in Spanish, as you can see here, which in the case of our US exporters are typically bilingual. Certificate must be signed by your veterinarian, and letterhead certificates are required for these products. I will also, I don't know if we have any lamb exporters on the call, but I'll just add in a side note here. We have been working with USDA to finalize lamb access for Costa Rica, as right now we do not have lamb access. It's the only market restricted for lamb in Central America. There will be a plant and product registration process through that. So we are working with USDA to get details on what that process looks like. And we'll have to test the system probably with at least one plant to verify that process. So if there are any folks on the call that are interested in exporting lamb to Costa Rica at some point, please reach out and we can discuss what those options look like. El Salvador, fully open again, beef, pork, lamb, again, bilingual or Spanish labels. Details are in the library on that. As is most Central American countries, the 9060-5 must be signed by the veterinarian, and letterhead certificates are required for beef and poultry. Nicaragua, fully open as well. Again, bilingual or Spanish labels and a letterhead certificate for beef. And Dominican Republic, fully opened all products, and then just a letterhead required for beef and veal. Okay, so as we mentioned, and as we say on every exporter training, we always defer back to the export library. All the additional information on these countries can be found there, but that gives you a high-level overview, which, as I said, luckily for us, Central America is pretty open as far as access and plan approvals go. So what happens if you have an issue? And we lump these into two types of issues. They could be an issue with interpretation of what's in the library or the export requirements with your inspector signing the export documents, or you've landed the product in whatever country in Central America and you're facing issues, whether it's due to they took a microbiological test, a dirty container, as Alex mentioned. So we always recommend contacting or starting contact either with us and or USDA or both of us as soon as an issue comes up. It's more expeditious for us to get all hands on deck immediately. So, you know, whether you contact Alex in our Mexico City office or myself in Denver, or go directly to FSIS, we're always talking and we can quickly loop in the applicable FSIS contacts. And then we also start communication immediately with the embassy so that they can get more information as they talk to the government officials there. So either way, your options, so if you know, depending on which contact you have, we're going to loop in USDA regardless when we hear from you. So we're happy to make that connection, but there are a couple options you can see here on how to do that. So some more details on that process. If you reach out to us with an issue, we will always ask for this information as outlined on the slide. So when seeking assistance, we always ask that give us a description of the product, the location, you know, which port is it at in whatever country, the nature of the issue, you know, do you have any official communication from the foreign government on why it's detained? This could be an official rejection letter, or it could just be an email from that foreign government entity to, say, the importer or customs agent. We ask for names of which agency is involved, even specific contacts with, if you have that. And then copies of all export documentation, export certificate, letterhead certificates, bill of lading. We'll ask for the whole export packet. And the quicker we can get that information and start distributing it around to the USDA contacts, the quicker that we can try and resolve your issue. We do ship a little bit of chilled product to Central America, so that's really critical to try and start working on those questions or issues as quickly as possible. Okay, so that is it for the FSIS portion. We'll send around a copy of the slides so you can see the contact information here. So I'll hop back to our last slide. And it looks like we may have one question in the Q&A, but feel free to submit those in the Q&A box if you have them. Okay. So question, Spanish labels to Nicaragua, please clarify for which products. Oh, Dr. Rodriguez is saying that's a typo. So we will clarify that in the slides and resend that out. He's saying disregard. So we'll update that in the slides and correct that, which is probably why you were a bit confused when I said that. So I apologize for that. Next question, what is the no objection certificate? Alex?
Yep, I'm just rechecking that one. The no objection certificate is asked by the Dominican Republic. And let me just recheck exactly what my notes say.
I'm gonna hop back to that slide.
Yeah.
So while you're looking,
basically it was made by a law. The maps out ALL1011 version 02, but it mostly is a documentation to say that this product is allowed entry into the Dominican Republic. I will search for more information for that, Hazel, and I will send it to you.
Okay, yeah, so we can package that additional information when we send out the slides. All right, thank you. Okay, next question is, are pork items eligible for export to Belize? Yes, our understanding is there are no restrictions on pork to Belize. That is not listed in the export libraries you saw, so that's always you will just get a 9060-5 and ship at your own risk. But we will double check that with the USDA before, in case something's changed that we haven't heard about, but we've never heard of any issues there. And
well, Juan is saying that pork is not addressed in the EL page for Belize. However, if an exporter requests a 9060-5, one could be issued with no attestations. So I think that's a yes.
Correct, yeah. Perfect, all right. Next question, Alex, just double checking that all Honduras and Guatemala shipments need to be loaded on heat treated pallets or floor loaded.
The pallets have to be heat treated, and if I'm not mistaken, almost all countries have signed the declaration for heat treatment or chemical treatment to allow, that is to prevent the entry of pests. So to be better safe than sorry, yes, please do a treatment. And as you know, this treatment lasts for a lifetime. So just check on the pallets. As I mentioned in my first slide, almost all our complaints are either documentation or something like a broken pallet, a dirty container, something that can be, in a way, relatively easy to solve in the US, but really hard to solve once you go into Central America. Unfortunately, you're not like Mexico that we can just cross the border and ask for another document. You're in Central America now. So, and I wouldn't load them on the floor because they might say that the products can be dirty. So better use heat-treated pallets.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any Central American countries that did not sign the IPCC attestation. So you're correct, Alex. We always recommend use of heat treated if using pallets. Okay, any other last questions? I see none in the Q&A.
Don't be shy. Even if we don't know them right now, we will search them for you.
Okay, I think that's it. So if you have questions after, feel free to contact us. We're always here. We'll add a few additional details based on the questions we got at the end, and we'll make an update to the Nicaragua slide and send that out. So again, we thank everyone for joining. I apologize for the technical difficulties in my impromptu presentation, but yes, you will be getting a copy of the slides, and we will be posting the recording on our YouTube page where all other exporter trainings are posted. So we are currently working through what next month's topic and date will be. So I did not put that slide up as you've seen in the previous exporter webinars, but we will notify everyone through our exporter update as soon as we have that. So if anyone on the call does not receive our daily export update and you are a USMEF member, please contact me and we'll make sure to get you added to that. And then just give us a day or so and we'll get you these slides and package everything else up in a follow-up email. So, okay. I
think just don't, yeah, there's Niels Littletorp. He has a question. He's in the chat.
Go ahead.
Well, let's just wait until he posts it. Yes, Niels?
So while we're waiting for his question, before we hop off, a survey will pop up. We would really appreciate you taking the time. It's very, very short. It's very quick. So if you take a moment, that helps us make these seminars better going forward. You know, as we've said before, at some point, we look forward to doing in-person ones again, but we will be doing more virtual in the time. So take a moment to answer those before we finish here. Okay, Alex, in the beginning of your slides, you showed a label showing product of USA and Canada. In the past, that has been a problem in the DR.
Let me just...
Can you comment on if mixed origin?
Oh yeah, here I see the photo. So now he's still explaining. Sometimes I try to get the best photos that I can, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to get photos, especially for countries that, even if I've visited, I haven't been able to get into the proper inspection location. So sometimes I have to make do.
Yeah. Had a load of bone-in loins arriving to the DR and customs wanted to apply Canadian import duties on the load.
I mean, in my experience, and feel free to correct me. Okay, let's just finish.
So even if it's coming from live Canadian hogs, once it's slaughtered and processed in the US, it would be product of USA origin and should only have product of USA as origin on the label.
Yes. So in this case, I think that for it to have a Canadian origin, the hogs were slaughtered in Canada, they were packed in Canada, and then they were sent to the United States. So maybe they were repacked there and then sent over to the DR. But in that case, I think the origin could still be Canada because the animal was raised and slaughtered in Canada. And for CAFTA to be of origin, at least you have either the animal could have been to be born and slaughtered in the United States, or born in Canada, but as Cheyenne said, slaughtered in the United States. So that would be the point for that.
Yeah, so as always, to prevent confusion, especially on where we're seeking preferential duties in countries like the CAFTA countries, Panama, Colombia, Chile, Peru, et cetera, anywhere we have FTAs, then product of US origin is preferred to minimize confusion. And again, under the USDA rules, as long as it's slaughtered or processed or even repackaged in the US, it should have product of USA on it. So I'm trying to think of a scenario where it would have both countries of origin on it. The question is how much a product is changed to change origin.
In my experience, Niels, it is when you change in chapter. For example, if the animal is alive, it's in chapter 1. If it's dead, it's in chapter 2. And if it's processed, it's in chapter 16. So in this case, if the animal was alive in Canada, but was slaughtered in Canada and then was sent to the United States as a packed product, it would still be Canadian, because it changed in chapter, but within Canada. If the animal was alive, this is chapter 1 in Canada, and it was slaughtered in the United States, it would be chapter 2 in the United States. And then it would be the origin would be United States because it changed to chapter 2. In the case of an animal that was alive and slaughtered in Canada, and then sent to the United States and be made into a sausage, I think it could also be, the origin could change because you were changing from chapter 2, meat, to chapter 16, processed products. That is in my experience when you become when a product becomes of origin, you have to change the chapter.
Well, and I want to add a note here from Dr. Rodriguez, who I wish he could chime in. He's sending me his comments via chat. Yeah, so as we said before, so if that, even if it's Canadian origin product, so is slaughtered, put into muscle cuts in the US, if it comes to the US and is repackaged under FSIS inspection in the US, then the label of that product would then state product of US. So I'm still not sure why we would have a scenario where we would have double origin, and that's not something we typically see on our export labels. Because any type of processing, which even includes packaging or repackaging in the US under FSIS inspection, would change that to a product of USA.
I think that what Niels is saying, that it was exported to Canada as fresh pork side and then cut up in the US, that would comply with what Dr. Rodriguez is saying, because it's been repackaged under FSIS inspection.
Yeah, so it should have just been product.
It should have been USA, just USA.
Yeah. I'm not sure why they put double origin on there. So
mistake.
Yeah, it was a mistake showing USA and Canada. Yeah, so ignore that part of the label. I apologize for that. So we'll block that out or get a better label to show that. And that's not something we commonly see anymore. So hopefully, and if, you know, we always recommend the exporters and importers double check the labels for that. So that's a good example of where that is not a good representation of the label we'd want to see. So we will update that when we send the slides out.
I just put it there so to see if they were paying attention.
Okay, so we have one more question. Is there an expiration date restriction on pork export to the DR? We see there is no labeling requirement for expiration date. However, is there an age limit for the product to be allowed to be imported?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I wouldn't send a product that was slaughtered 2 years ago, but we all know that no product that was slaughtered more than 6 weeks ago is going to be sold. I mean, people are usually slaughtering and selling quite quick. But I can check that one for you. I will I will copy it and check it with FSIS in FAS and with in the Dominican Republic. But as I know, there's no age limit for this.
So we know that Panama is trying to enforce a shelf life requirement for beef and possibly for pork. So that is the only country that we've heard of in Central America. Costa Rica used to have shelf life requirements, and those were removed years ago. So as of today, we are not aware of any of the Central American countries that have enforced a shelf life requirement that actually resulted in rejection or destruction of product. But as I mentioned, we recently were notified by USDA of Panama trying to implement a shelf life restriction for beef. So that is something that we're tracking and we'll report on once we get more details. So we always ask again to be notified of any potential issues that come up, because we are really only aware of that if we hear from the exporters. So we haven't heard that that's caused issues for our exporters to Panama to date, but that may be coming down the pike. But for any other country, we're not aware of any shelf life restrictions. Okay. Yep, Dr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, that resolution.
Resolution 255 in Panama is yet to be enforced. So, but USDA is working to push back against that, because obviously we see any shelf life requirement or restrictions implemented at the regulatory level as a barrier to trade. So
what we have to remember is that there are many regulations that come into place as a way to pacify domestic producers, such as this decree, because there's no scientific proof or anything that can be used as a basis for these regulations. But well, these are the non-technical, non-tariff barriers of entry for all of us. And yes, as Cheyenne was mentioning, Costa Rica used to have one. Unfortunately, they have finally taken it off.
okay, I think that's all of our questions. So
another one.
Yeah, so from my understanding, shelf life restrictions for beef Panama only apply to fresh chilled. That is correct, but is yet to be enforced, as Dr. Rodriguez said. So if you hear otherwise from your importer or are hearing of enforcement actions related to that, please let us know as soon as possible.
We try to monitor all these, but also the other thing that happens in Central America and Mexico is that maybe there are rules in place, but nobody takes them into account. And then somebody says, yeah, the rule exists, and then applies it. And that sucker punches us a little bit. So that's the beauty of exporting to all these countries.
Okay, well, thanks everyone. It looks like we have no further questions. Like I said, please email us after if you come up with any, and we will get these sent out to you. We appreciate your time. Please take the time to complete the survey. I would like to thank our speakers, Alejandra, Dr. Rodriguez, and we will be in touch next month with another topic. So thanks again, everyone.